Above the silence, beyond the edge of our skies, something is always in motion, invisible, constant, unseen, yet everywhere. Space, helping us observe, navigate, and connect. But as our needs down on Earth evolve, space follows suit to help us protect what matters. For that purpose, EU space programs are dual use. EU GovSatcom, a precursor to the IRIS² Secure Connectivity Programme, already delivers secure connectivity to defence users, while Galileo provides robust positioning, timing and navigation services. A future Earth observation governmental service will deliver very frequent, high-resolution imagery for defence and security purposes. Europe must be able to act in and from space whenever needed. And it all begins with one capability: autonomous access to space, with established leaders and bold new players. Because resilience starts in orbit. Are you ready for liftoff?
À tous de DDO, attention pour décompte final. 3, 2, 1.
Et décollage.
Dear guests, welcome to EU Space Days 2026.
Well, a very good morning, everybody. You were here yesterday. A very good morning, everybody. Come on. You're all completely full of free coffee, so there's no excuse to be low energy this morning. Good morning. Welcome back to our second day of EU Space Days. I hope you all slept well. You all look like you did, but then again, it's quite a dark room. Yesterday was brilliantly insightful. I enjoyed every moment of it. We talked about flying the EU flag higher, the market report, how EU space is crucial for a stronger European defense. We basically proved that we can be safe, secure, strategically autonomous, and keep enjoying all the cool bits of space, including staring at the very cool rockets next door. My mother has always said to me, Alex, make sure you are never the smartest person in the room. She would be absolutely thrilled that I have outdone myself in these couple of days. I really have beaten all the records of not being the smartest person in the room. Today we're bringing things a little closer to Earth, or at least the people on Earth. We're going to kick off with a panel about skills for Europe's space future, because we can make the best satellites in the universe. If we don't train the future workforce to operate them, they probably won't get very far at all. Later this morning, we'll talk about member states' space infrastructure, and we've got a very exciting live demonstration, which is why I will be keeping you all to time today, about our newly operational GovSatcom and how it can help civil protection tackle wildfire emergencies. We're then going to get even more into the future with quantum for satellite communications. If you're a little unclear on exactly how the quantum communication stuff work, I highly recommend my strategy of stroking your chin and nodding, looking intellectual. It's worked for me in the last 24 hours. It'll work for you today. If you throw in those highly anticipated Cassini pitching sessions in the Agora, we are set to have an absolutely wonderful, star-studded day of EU Space Days here in Cyprus. The weather is beautiful, the crowd is beautiful, and excited and thrilled, as am I. Let's kick off with our first panel. Thank you so much.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I think we're missing one panelist. Yeah, perhaps. She will join us soon. Okay, Christina, yes, she will be joining us soon. So, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to this panel on skills. As you know, Europe, the European space sector is undergoing a rapid pace of transformation and innovation. In this transformation era, skills play the most significant part. It's a common denominator of all the challenges that the European space sector is facing. The ability, that is, to attract talent, to develop skills, and to retain the talent becomes decisive in Europe's being able to deliver on its space ambitions. Today's situation, if you like, in industry, in the space industry, is not as it used to be. Up to now, we have been connecting the space industrial ecosystem only with the profiles of engineers and scientists. This is not the case anymore. The space industry requires a wide range of capacities and qualities, that is ranging, if you like, from data analysts to business developers, to system integrators, and so on and so forth. So the question raises, what do we do in order to prepare the future workforce for Europe? Another issue, which is not very well attended to, but it is there, is how the space industrial ecosystem reflects the diversities of our societies. Women and underrepresented groups remain underrepresented in the space industrial ecosystem, which is not a case only of fairness, but it's an issue, a direct issue of innovation and resilience in the sector. Today, I'm very pleased to be joined by an excellent panel of experts representing industry, academia, and civil society, and together we'll be looking into these elements. I would like to give the floor to each one of them very, very briefly to present themselves and explain who they are and why they're interested in skills. So, being politically incorrect for once, I will start with Emmanuel.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Emmanuel Zenot. I am professor at ISAE Superior in Toulouse. I am also working for the University of Toulouse on a European alliance called UNIVERSE. It's a pan-European alliance that focus some new educational tools and programs on the space sector.
Thank you. Monica.
Thank you. Monica Pesce. Today I'm the partner in EY in charge of space, defense and digital for EU institutions. I probably, based on the statistics, I am not part of the space industry, even though I position myself as part of the space industry. I joined EY 3 years ago through the acquisition of my company, so I can also call myself somehow a start-upper. And I work, as mentioned, with European institutions. I don't come from engineering, I come from an economic background. The first 10 years of my life I work in very different fields in management consulting, ranging from food to fashion to industrial goods, and discovered my passion for space later on.
Thank you. Avery?
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you. I am the founder and director of STEM Think Innovation Center. My background is in education, innovation, and neuroscience for learning. For years, I've been wondering how we can create effective learning environments to equip learners with the skills demanded by the 21st century, by today. Industry needs and societal demands, global challenges, and all this. Reports refer to this mismatch. Graduates leave universities, schools, and they don't have the skills demanded by the industry. So having this in mind, we have established STEM-Freak to address this mismatch. Neuroscience for Learning gives its opinion about this. Passive learning, memorization, fear of mistake, isolated discipline, and narrow definition of intelligence are not working anymore. So we need to create learning environments that inspire the curiosity, the collaboration, interactivity, and multimodality.
Thank you. And last but not least, Theodora.
So good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be joining you in this panel today. I'm Theodora Liameti. I work for Eutelsat as a regulatory market access analyst, and at the same time, I serve as the co-lead of the European Working Group of GSOA, which is the Global Satellite Operators Association, representing the entire voice of the satellite industry. I think I'm very happy to be in this panel because mostly of my own experience and my own career path. So I'm a lawyer by profession, and a few years ago when I was studying law in Greece, I could have never imagined that I could potentially work for the space sector. And right now, in my daily life, I work and interact with engineers, with people from very different backgrounds than mine. I work with policymakers, people in the commercial department, doing sales, doing business and strategy. So I come to realize that space is super interdisciplinary, and I feel that our educational system fails to prepare the future workforce to join this dynamic and disciplinary industry. And at the same time, I think that it is very important that we take steps also to prepare for the industry to have a future pool of talent to attract.
Thank you very much, Dr. That makes the two of us. I don't know how I ended up in space. I haven't studied politics, but here I am. Okay. So, Emmanuel, just to start our analysis for today, some of the recent reports show clearly a mismatch between what universities teach students and what the actual needs of the space industry really are. Where do you see, from your point of view, the main challenges in finally aligning academic programs with industry expectations?
Okay, so how long time do we have? Because we can speak for hours. I mean, everybody will be roasted like chicken in this discussion. So when we see the analysis, when we analyze the current situation, we can work from the two sides, from the demand side, industry, and from also the supply side, academia. So from industry, when we ask our colleagues in the industry what do they want in 5 years, they don't know. They have some ideas in 1 year, maybe, or even now. I remember when Airbus came to us and say, okay, we need 100 engineers in AI. Okay, for when? For now. It was 5 years ago. It was not that developed like today. So, I mean, industry wants everything. They want, as you said, they want engineers, highly skilled, with a lot of knowledge and know-how, but at the same time, multidisciplinary knowledge, know-how. They want students who have some international experience, team experience. Yes, they want students who have 10 years of experience, but with the salary of a new engineers. The attractiveness of the sector, of course, is not that much as for AI or for finance, for instance. So it's not always easy to get input, globally speaking, from industry in a middle term. But of course, at the university, it's also not easy. I won't of course, not all universities are concerned, but at least are concerned on one of these aspects. First of all, everybody's talking about multidisciplinarity, always, but at university it's not that much popular. It is popular in blah, 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 but you know, professors and researchers are in their discipline. And so they owe to a community. And when you go to, or you bring bridge or whatever, there is something like if you are not with us, you are with us or you are not with us. You understand? It's not always easy for a researcher who is very vertical in one discipline to cross disciplines. Reactivity, it's very difficult to be reactive when you are at university. I mean, you have some accreditation for 4 years. You have internal processes. If you want to change one comma, you have to wait 4 years for the authorization of the ministry. Okay. Few innovation spirit from professors. I mean, if one professor wants to have his company on the side, he cannot. It's very difficult. There is more and more opening, but globally speaking, in Europe, at least in some part of Europe, it's not always well seen to have a company besides being professors. Of course, the core mission of education of a university is education research, so it's long-term, it's not short-term mission. So now, when we have all this analysis, what do we do? So we can just take each bullet point and having an answer. From my perspective, I think that maybe we should focus on some lifelong learning and continuing education. We say that usually university, the students are graduate and they leave. And maybe the university of tomorrow, it's all along the life of a professional. I think that we need to be trained always, every year, and maybe from policymakers, if there is one law to do, is really to oblige every collaborator to have 1 or 2 weeks of continuing education and lifelong learning. Also developing some distance learning, asynchronous learning, what we try to do also in university, what we are doing in university. But at the end of the day, we cannot, today at university, once it's graduated, it's finished. And it should not be like this later on. It's more continuing process all along the life of professionals.
Thank you very much. You referred to learning, enjoying. That takes me directly to Andre to talk about her own experience. I mean, clearly we need to increase the awareness for space careers and space opportunities, and it is best if we start from the youngest. So working in that area, what is your experience out of, for instance, the space camps you have been promoting in actually influencing people's, or young people's, to be more precise, choice for space careers?
Yes. Space careers cannot be, students cannot choose career by simply present them the opportunity careers that exist outside there. Their experience in school, traditional school settings, makes space careers look isolated and too far from them, because they experienced it in a way that is not easy for them to understand the relevance with them, their skills, their personality qualities, their knowledge. Knowledge as is presented in traditional school settings is isolated in boxes. So the careers that they know, they are aware of, are the topics in school: geography, physics, maths. But we honestly know that space careers are so much broader, so much interdisciplinary, and the skills that are required are very, very different from the ones that they have. This is reported. You mentioned it before in several reports. Now, the experiencing a camp, as it was the last year's Cassini Space Camp in Cyprus, of course, supported this, worked profoundly supported students in choosing these careers. After a 10-day hackathon and daily work, hands-on work with STEM through challenge-based approaches, students analyze data, understand these space innovation technologies and the relevance these technologies have with their everyday life. And even we got this a step forward. They even faced real-life challenges, and by analyzing satellite data and all this, they have created ideas, startup ideas, to address these challenges through entrepreneurship ideas. 10 different groups were created, and 3 prizes were given. These companies, these startups, have proceeded through the year after the camp, and they are working with us. At STEM Fring, we still guide them. Mm-hmm. It wasn't our obligation from the program, but it was an obligation seeing all these new talented people coming there and wanting to learn more. Working with STEM Fring, my company, we have a flagship innovative program, STEM Ambassadors. This is a program where we prepare students, starting them from early childhood to adulthood. And we work with them through a 5-level, progressive levels approach. At level 1, they have the experience, they have their first experiences with the STEM through project-based learning. At level 2, they start working on project. Level 3, they start innovation with industry relevance, and year 4 and 5, they become innovator startups. So STEM Fring is not just an educational center, it's an ecosystem, combining incubator, link with industries, providing all this consultation to them to become young innovators, young creators, designers, engineers. We start early at the age of 4, this journey, this learning journey. So we don't expect for them to finish a master or a PhD thesis to start innovation. They start early at the age of 12 or 13, the level 3. So we have people for longer time in innovation, and to see them choose careers relevant to this industry. So we have seen students, and they are not only the gifted children that are thriving through this curriculum, through this program. We do have students that come to the center carrying labels. They have dyslexia, they have behavioral problems, they have, we don't care about it. Everything is finished when they enter the curriculum, and they have this different learning methodology, content of knowledge, this interdisciplinary approach. Traditional school kills innovation, kills their motives, their interests, their curiosity. They born and they are curious, and then they lose this thing because school becomes bored, and they do not receive any motivation. So we do have this program. We have seen these great opportunities from ISA, from USPA, offering camps and all these events. They work, but from my opinion, my point of view, I believe that we need something more solid, more lasting. We need to create opportunities for formal or informal learning centers to provide quality STEAM education targeting to innovation.
Clearly, you need the full cycle. I mean,
Yes.
not just the push. You mentioned at some stage that part of the Space Camp is making a close link to industry, which brings me now to Monica. So industry often highlights great difficulties in finding candidates with the right technical and transversal skills. From your industry point of view, what would be the most critical competencies that the future space workforce is called to have?
I think there is a wide range of competencies that are needed, and my perspective, by going through the projects that are ongoing on this topic, we always tend to focus on the engineering skills. There is a big light on engineering and science. There is a dissection of all the courses, which I believe is indeed important. It's important to have specialized people, but we are looking already at university level. And today we have the issue that the number of people graduating is not growing probably as much as the need from the industry side, at least not in Europe. So we are looking at solving the problem when it's too late. I mean, if the issue is that we need to have more engineers or more people with a degree, maybe not necessarily engineering, then we need to understand first, how do we attract more people to go to university? And this is a very complex problem today in Europe. So maybe the solution is that we need to look outside of Europe together with looking inside of Europe, which is a very complex discussion to have probably at the member state and at European level. But we too often don't really look at the root problem, and we focus on the very specific solution of making the current graduates more specialized. And I am fully aligned with what Avril and Emmanuel said. I mean, over-specialization might not be the answer, and I fully agree with you that continuous training is the reality. Talking about our experience, there is a huge upskilling and reskilling initiative focused on AI. Huge. I mean, we're talking, EY has almost 400,000 employees globally. We have to upskill and reskill the whole workforce. This is a huge investment, and the solution wouldn't be we need to change our workforce. We need to let go all the people who know nothing about AI, because we need to hire people who know everything about AI. This is not the solution. I know I'm saying something that is very difficult, but there is also an investment that is needed on the company side to allow the workforce to build the skills that are more necessary according to how the economy changes. And I think multidisciplinarity is relevant when we talk about going from a very engineering-driven and product-driven economy that was working very well 30 years ago, 20 years ago, with a cycle that was very linked to the public supporting the building of big infrastructures, to a new world where the new space is driven by commercial applications. It's a completely different world. The first one will not disappear, but the second one is picking up. And in the second world, you need different competencies. You need to be more market-driven. You need people who understand the business, who understand the user needs, and adapt the solution, the technology behind, to the needs of the market. If you need to put products that are market-driven on the market, you need a completely different way of approaching the market. So it is indeed a very complex solution, but I agree with what you said. We are starting too late. We don't talk, students, I see this with the recruiting. When we post a job ad talking about we want a profile that has interest in working in space, first the number of CVs drops dramatically. And when you interview the candidates, their perception is that what we are looking for is engineers that are going to send rockets into space. And it's like, I mean, no, today, I would say until today, 80% of our work was downstream. It was about data. We never talk about data. We never talk about how space data are used in the economy. You've seen the market report that was launched yesterday. We are talking about 17 markets. It's a completely different thing if you talk about cultural heritage, agriculture, automotive. I mean, where are all those skills? And this is potentially a huge market, a huge industry that doesn't have an answer.
Thank you very much. That actually raised a question for Emmanuel, but I'll leave him quiet for the time being and turn directly to Theodora. Why? Would like to hear from you, from a vertical point of view, the area of satellite communications and connectivity. Your area that you represent here with us today is transforming rapidly. You've got commercial innovation, you've got geopolitics, transforming the sector very rapidly. So how does this transformation you experience in SATCOMs, for instance, changes the profile of the skills needed in the sector? And I don't know if you can answer the next question, but how can Europe then anticipate the future workforce needed there? If you don't want, you don't reply to the second one.
I can try my best. So I'm actually very glad I'm finally in the row. I've heard some very interesting interventions and ideas and initiatives, and I must say I'm fully aligned with what was mentioned. Indeed, I feel that what is missing the most, which I forgot to say before, is a lack of visibility. So when we're studying, when we are in the phase of the university, we are really not aware of the career opportunities that we have. I think that we see space as a more niche sector. We don't know that, for example, as a lawyer, you can work in that sector and you can actually actively contribute to it. But it's true that now we see it, for example, as a space that is reserved for astronauts or engineers, but this is not true anymore. And as you mentioned, space, and especially in the area of satellite communications, they are becoming increasingly integrated and part of the general digital and connectivity ecosystem. So we really see a need and a shift from purely engineering knowledge also to other skills. We do want data analysts. We want people who understand AI, who can work on cloud infrastructure, resilience, and other domains. So it's not just a purely technical engineering domain anymore that is reserved for aerospace students. So, of course, this still matters, and it is important that we have disciplines who give the technical expertise to people, but we also need to have give the skills to the students to have a general cross-sectoral understanding, to be flexible enough to work with people from different backgrounds, and to understand also how the different disciplines interact with each other. So I think any initiative, if I may come to the proposals, that give these skills to the students early on, while they're still in high school or early at the university, is very important. That we have joint degrees, for example. I know that Universae is doing a very great job in combining different disciplines and preparing the students by also involving them in very nice projects. I myself, for example, have participated in the very interesting Arctic Winter School, where there I was with other colleagues for 2 weeks, studying different subjects and not just specializing in one domain. So I think it is important, again, to strengthen this link between academia and the industry, to give them a hands-on experience and to give them the visibility of the different career paths that they can take. And if I may, I would also like to say that this skills challenge is not only relevant to the future workforce. We already have people who are working, but technologies are changing and evolving rapidly. So we also need to make sure that there is continuous learning. And for example, I see that from an industry perspective, policymakers or people who work for the regulatory authorities, they are responsible to take decisions, to prescribe new regulations, to regulate these technologies, but they don't always have the capacity to understand how these technologies are working, how they are changing, and how they are integrating with each other. So I think, if I may conclude with one sentence, investing in skills means investing in institutional capacity, continuous learning, and in continuous engagement between industry, policy making, and educational universities and institutions in general.
Great, thank you very much. And now, I've not forgotten the question for you, linking you to Monica. Monica talked about changing a little bit of the academic curricula to help industry as well. So from your side, from your point of view, how can academic alliances build a truly integrated space education ecosystem? What can you do, in fact?
So when we created Universae, the focus was the space sector, but in a multidisciplinary way. It was a challenge also in the university because there is like a glass roof also for women, but also for non-scientific, as you said, and non-engineers. And maybe it's a miss of visibility, but when we go to see our colleagues, say, okay, we develop this interdisciplinarity approach of space. Oh, space is not for me. It's for others. So it's true that we fight every day with that. Now, I would say that universities, current universities and Grande École and so on, have already a lot of things to do and so on. So the idea of Universae was to do something else. And at least it's nice because it's like, it's a new, not a project, it's much beyond than a project, but it's a new entity. We don't have yet a legal entity, but it's under discussion, but at least you start from scratch. And it's true that we are very happy to see that there is a lot of interest, especially from the students. We develop also some summer schools or winter schools, season school, for very short 1 week, 2 weeks programs. And they are very happy also, even engineers, to see something else. And I think one of the main advantage of that is to mix different people. People from engineering, but people from arts, people from law. They usually don't mix. And when you have a sectorial approach instead of a discipline approach, you mix different people, different point of view, and it's very rich to do that. So Universae is one of the answers to go ahead. Once again, it's with some passionate colleagues, and so colleagues who bet on the space sector. I mean, we all know here how important is the space sector in science engineering, but also outside. We have a roundtable with the French Space Agency, was 1 year ago, and also we highlight the needs of humanities, human science. I mean, everybody knows what is NASA in the world. And in France, I would say in France, I think more people know NASA than ESA, and even than CNES on the grand public. Okay. In Toulouse, it's very particular because it's a very specific city, but globally speaking. So we are late, and we have this cultural fight. We need to have also the voice of Europe. It's not only technical, but it's also storytelling. And Europe needs to find its own way, on a technical way, but also cultural way. I mean, culture is 10 times the market of the space sector. Okay, so it's a huge market. So mixing both is very important, and we try to develop, but it's very difficult, once again, to develop this initiative also on human sciences, social sciences. Law is more or less now accepted in our sector. But no, when we talk about human sciences, the first topic is law, okay, globally speaking. But of course, working with some agencies like Execo for commerce, like SP, etc. We are working also with this European agency, depending either from the European Commission or from the European Space Agency, to go ahead and to build something together on the space sector. And we are going. It's good.
Great. Thank you very much. We heard what universities can do. I think it's high time we ask industry. How can industry interfere? What can industry do to achieve the same result?
I think it's very difficult if we agree with the fact that the problem takes place at the level of high school, which makes the whole interaction more difficult. So assuming that the industry will make an effort to create awareness, build the storytelling. If we think of how many articles we read in the newspapers about space, I think it's not enough, considering how pervasive space is in our
yeah, but young people
daily
don't read
life.
articles.
Yeah, online, social media, etc., and all the likes. But we need that. We need to create awareness. We need to change the perception. Then, of course, I think industry should be interacting more with universities and with schools, but also with a more open discussion, because we talk a lot about specialization. And in a world changing at the speed that it's changing now, I'm not sure specialization is the answer. The risk is that you specialize professionals for a topic that is not going to be relevant in 5 years from today or 10 years from today. So you need to combine specialization, technical specialization, whatever technical means, not necessarily engineering, with problem solving, flexibility, resilience. These are all topics that are usually addressed by human science.
And not by artificial intelligence.
And not by artificial intelligence. Not yet. Let's see in the future. But I think this is what we see is often missing. I think 20 years ago, there was a movement in Europe about how to make our university look more like the American university. That was pushing for more specialized, more pragmatic, hands-on, and things like that. And we are losing a little bit our strength, which was this ability to bring together different topics that are truly helpful in the workplace in terms of adapting to change, becoming flexible, being focused on problem solving. I think these are things that are needed today, will be needed tomorrow. And we need to combine the two. But this needs to be a dialogue between university, academia, and industry.
Thank you indeed for that. In fact, I wanted to ask a very similar question to Theodora. I mean, how ready industry is to attract talents and skills from other sectors, but you're quite clear in your primary positioning that this is already happening. So with your permission, I'd like to address the last question of the panel today to Andre with something more specific. From your experience, what would be needed to scale up programs like space camps or other hands-on learning experiences so we can reach a broader and more inclusive and diverse audience across Europe?
Yes, we cannot definitely wait until university to discover who is interested in space. By then, we have already lost many students, especially girls, neurodiverse students, students from migrant communities, lower income families. and those who never saw themselves represented in STEM. So the first priority is early access. We need space innovation programs embedded from a young age through schools, makerspace, space camps, hackathons, community labs, micro-credentials. We have now the technology, learning management systems for more online, hybrid learning formats, and teachers training. Training to change the methodology and the delivery, and of course training the curricula designers to understand the limitations of existing curriculums. We need interdisciplinarity in all, in full, let's say, access, a different approach, as Monica said. It's a fast-changing world, and technology make it even faster. So education is left behind, and this is something I could say dangerous. We need to go hand by hand with the technology development and all these things. So this is the first, and the other thing is the quality STEAM education. Project-based learning education, not just AI tools, the context, without the content. AI in a context, using satellite data to understand environmental risk, using AI to detect patterns, using engineering to prototype a solution. So we want the practical, the hands-on experience provided in the curriculums and the events, activities that will be designed to promote this. So for me, is the early, start early the innovation, don't leave, be inclusive to all, and this is something we know that can be done by problem-based approaches. So this is started quality education and collaboration between industry, society, academia, world.
Perfect. I think you made the perfect epilogue to this panel topic today. I think we all retain from your insights and experiences that in the end of the day, the issue of skills is not just an educational challenge, stricto sensu. It is a very conscious political choice, transversing across the whole space ecosystem as such. And clearly we need to adopt and to adapt to new skills paradigms if we want Europe to retain its leadership in space. So I think we all learned something today about this. With a warm applause to our panelists, thank you for your attention.
Can you all join me in another round of applause for Alessandros and the panel just gone? We're going to take a little coffee break. I've been told to inform you that we have to be back in these seats at 11:30 sharp because there's a live demonstration, and therefore I will be rounding you all up about 5 minutes before. See you in half an hour. Thank you, guys. Welcome back, everybody. How's everyone doing? I'm going to need one more of those. How's everybody doing? Wonderful, and I appreciate the applause. We're going to do something a little bit different to welcome this next panel to keep that energy up. From the moment I introduce them to the moment they sit down, I would like applause the whole way through. Can we do that? Well, join me in welcoming Christina and our next panel.
So welcome to the panel, Space Infrastructure in EU Member Space. Why is space so important? It is no longer important because of exploration and science. That's not the only thing that we do. It is also very important as an infrastructure for our society, our economy, and our safety and security. Therefore, to have infrastructures in the EU and the member states, in space and on the ground, allows us, as a union, to make sovereign decisions. With that, I would like to invite our panelists, Duarte Cota from the Portuguese Space Agency, to join me here today. Sotiris Alexandrou from SITA. Emilio Agosta from the Space Opal. And Diofados Hadjimitsis from the Eratosthenes Center of Excellence. So welcome. Now, in the next 45 minutes, we'll have the opportunity to discuss together why the EU and member states' infrastructures are so important, and in particularly in a time where we have a lot of changes geopolitically. So let me start with you, Duarte. Access to space as an infrastructure is capitally intensive. It is both in terms of CapEx as well as OpEx. How can such an infrastructure be developed in a member state become sustainable over a longer period of time?
Okay, thank you, Christina. Good morning, everybody. First of all, I would like to say thank you on the organization for the invitation to be here representing the Portuguese Space Agency. It's a pleasure. I'm sorry I cannot see you because of the lights, but good morning everybody. Okay, let me start by saying that in this new geopolitical context that we are living in the past few years, the concept of sustainability changed a little bit. We cannot think about sustainability only in the economic side. We have to think about sustainability of space infrastructure, also on the environmental, social sides, because they are quite important as well. So the maintenance of space infrastructures in the member states should also, or should not be measured on launch frequency and revenue volume, but also, and especially in the initial phase of operations, on another aspects like, for example, their flexibility and multi-purpose aspects as well. So in the case of, for example, Portugal, it's not, this is not new for any one of us. In Portugal, we are trying to build nodes for access and return from space in the Azores Islands. Actually, I'm from the Azores, and I was saying to Christina that on Monday, I woke up in São Miguel Island in the middle of the Atlantic, exactly in the western frontier of Europe. And a few hours later, more or less 5,000 kilometers after flying, I was here in this very nice island in the eastern frontier of Europe. And it's quite amazing how geography is more important than dimension in this case, in Cyprus and in case of Portugal and the Azores specifically. So in the Azores, we are trying to build this node of access and return from space. And the biggest challenges that we have and the right strategy that we think that should be followed is to create these small nodes as ecosystems in a network of European nodes of access to space. And things need to be flexible and to be multi-purpose. These little ecosystems need to be integrated in other networks of nodes. And we think also that they need to be interoperable and also to bring also the defense sector to this architecture, this new architecture that we need to build in Europe regarding also the security and defense aspects. So to conclude my answer, I would say that let's see, because these nodes that we are talking about, it's also very focused on the new space paradigm. So let's see which companies that are starting to grow in Europe will reach the necessary maturity for operations. This is also important to, let's say, to evaluate this subject, but to be sustainable in terms of economy, I think these nodes should be quite flexible and multi-purpose, and also being involved with the defense sector.
Thank you. Now I'll turn to you, Sotiris, the other side of the European Union's borders, eastern border, to ask you a little bit about you as a hosting country. Also here, how do the European Union program ground infrastructures, they also help the Union and the Union's program, but also the development of the local technological advancement and national space capabilities, and industrially overall the nations which host such infrastructures.
Thank you for the opportunity. Well, space is an expensive hobby. So if you look, for instance, the case with the mega constellations, you see that basically it's the richest people on the planet that do most of the activity. And that's not a coincidence. You need a lot of funds, and that's an issue for many entities, for even large countries. So collaboration here is the key. And if you are in a small country like SIDA in Cyprus, it looks like, from the outside, like a huge hurdle. So in a sense, the opportunities that are offered by the Union and its activities, it's an important stepping stone to build the necessary critical mass. To start something, it could be small in the beginning, but once you get to the fundamentals, you start building the first stepping stones of the infrastructure, which are the most important. And by infrastructure, I don't just mean assets. You build the capabilities, you build the people, the know-how, the connections. By achieving that, it becomes easier and easier to get to the next collaboration, and more importantly, to get to commercial endeavors and build the capability to offer services that are competitive on a global scale. That's not easy. It takes a lot of effort and experience, but if you have a happy customer, that being commercial or whatever, and that customer can refer you to the next customer, that's the best marketing effort you can have. And by gradually growing your capabilities, your know-how, and your customer base, you can actually achieve something that from the outside would seem very, very difficult. So being small makes it difficult in the beginning, but with the help of the EU and the projects you bring in, it's much easier for you to to build the critical mass that is absolutely essential to survive in such a capital incentive endeavor. So this is what we are trying to do, and we hope to have more success in the future.
Thank you, Emilio. I will now turn to Space Opal, to turn to you. Lots of successful operations, and what would be, based on your experience, the most challenging governance issues faced, and what kind of opportunities do you see ahead?
Yes, thank you, Cristina. Emiliano, by the way. I'm a technical director of Space Opal. Yes, indeed, I have a certain experience, for sure, in Space Opal, from the side of the industry, because Space Opal is an industry working with USPA since many years, but also in previous experience with institutional programs. So, by the way, I have my opinion, I have a clear opinion of when you say governmental issues. I think that my experience, the first issues is in the perfect understanding of the governmental. What do we mean with that? Because it's obvious, it's banal to say that governance is, let's say, institutional framework, this is clear. But there are more founding ingredients that have to be perfectly understood by all the parties. First one is the strategy. It is clear. We should have, all of us, a direction. So there is a governance when there is a strategy. The strategy is mostly, let's say, indicated by the institution, but not only. The institution with perfect knowledge of the capability of the industries. Governance is also done by the operational entities interacting. So the operational entities are not, let's say, passive component. They are part of the governance. And the third ingredient, in my experience, that we never have to underestimate is the technical evolution. Why this? Because the technical evolution is not just, let's say, the outcome of a series of invention, innovation that all the actors are concurring to propose, let's say. It's a kind of autonomous process. Let me explain what I mean. Like, for example, the globalization is an autonomous consequence of the economical system in which we are. The technical evolution is, for sure, is a place where everyone can contribute actively, but it's also autonomous in the sense that if we do it or we don't do it, it will go anyway. So once we understand that the technical evolution is an alive part of the governance, we also understand where the issue where we can encounter the issue. In the sense that, first of all, the mechanism works when there is a perfect interactions between all the entities in coordination with the strategy and with perfect knowledge of where the evolution is going and where we want to bring it. Once we understand this, in my experience, let's say, probably the most important lesson learned is that it works if we are agile, if we are strongly agile, and if we work in an agile mindset. When I say agile, I mean not because I'm, let's say, passionate of agile methodology, even if I'm, let's say, certified and studied a lot, but it is because the technical evolution, as I was saying, it's running fast, independently on us. So either we are, let's say, main character of the movie and not just watcher, or we die. That's why I think that being agile was the most important lesson learned, to give a contribute as an industry where already the institutions are mandatorily, let's say, indicating in an agile context. This was my experience, where the issues can come, so it can be solved as an opportunity. That's from my side.
Thank you. Now, Diofados, I'll come to you. How can research and innovation infrastructures in member states, particularly with Earth observation and downstream applications, strengthen both national capabilities again and Europe's role and its strategic autonomy in a broader sense?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Excellent question. I'm working on Earth observation for the last 22 years. I returned from UK to Cyprus, and I have the experience for the local ecosystem and the European ecosystem, what's going on. About Earth observation, we try to find some funding mechanisms, funding schemes. For example, let's say Horizon Europe, Horizon 2020, local funding, and we try to invest on infrastructures. Infrastructure, if you decide to invest, you think, okay, you invest some money, how you can capitalize this investment in money, in cash money, in services, in industrial applications. Especially Cyprus, we try through the new established center, the Rados Center of Excellence, which has been established by a big funding scheme. It's called Excelsior from European Commission. It's a TIMIC project with 38 million euros funding. We decided to invest on infrastructures. Why? I'll give you one example. With my colleague Sotiris Alexandrou, when we try to do the business plan, the business way behind the infrastructure, we did sustainability with our colleagues from DLR, from NOAA, the strategic partners, and we try to see what is the main income from this investment. There is a cash flow, a business plan, and sustainability, and what's going on behind this investment. I'll give you one example. We established one ground receiving station in Nicosia for real-time data. And we did a solid business plan. What is the income? What is the business? What are the applications? I will give you some applications just to understand. We develop also a data cube, which is a soft infrastructure. We invest some money. We develop a national data cube for massive data and wide application range. We invest also to establish, it's called precise irrigation monitoring system for using Earth observation and AI in Cyprus for monitoring irrigation demand and forecasting irrigation in the next days. We invest on data cube infrastructure, and now behind this infrastructure, the income is coming back. I have some more examples, but I would like to say behind investment on infrastructure, there is a generation of data, of services, boosting the local economy, give the opportunity to the next generation to develop spin-offs. We are running the space big incubator locally in Cyprus with the support of the government, Rados Center of Excellence. And what we are doing, we have 4 winners recently, young researchers, and they are trying now to use our infrastructure. There is a policy how to use also open infrastructure or under asset sharing unit policy. But yes, we can invest on infrastructure. And what is the connection with Europe, with the national infrastructure, like Copernicus Initiative and other, I will explain also if you want to elaborate later on, but gives the opportunity to Europe to stop and reduce the dependency with non-European countries on services and the use of Earth observation products and applications. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will indeed come back to you a bit with how does this complement the union part. I will come to you, Emiliano, from an operational perspective. How does the technical sovereignty in systems like Galileo translate into this strategic sovereignty that we have in Europe, and which are the building blocks that are there, which are very important and decisive into making this into a real link from practice to reality?
Yes, very complex and interesting questions. I would start to say that when we shouldn't think about a real difference between strategical and technical sovereignty. They are for sure different concepts. But from the technical, let's say operational point of view, they are strongly connected. For at least for a simple statement, the strategic sovereignty of Europe, but I would say the same for other cases, is based on the fact that Europe can rely, but absolutely rely, on the fact that the systems are working continuously, are trustable, are owned. So without a system that demonstrate system processes, ecosystems, that demonstrate stably and continuously that they work for the purposes for which they have been designed, this is technical, let's say, stability. No way to think about technical autonomy and no way to think about strategical sovereignty. So they are fully connected things. For sure, we can think about building blocks, technical building blocks, but by the way, again, with the fact that they have to work in a continuous way with, let's say, putting on the field all the best technology or the best knowledge of the industry that are in Europe. Once you have this, once you have demonstrated the operational success, then the technology can bring to success also the strategic innovation. In Galileo, we have seen that we started a lot of years later than GPS. Still today, many of us think that we have in the smartphone the GPS. I use the GPS. No, you are mostly using Galileo, because Galileo today is the best satellite navigation system in the world, pretty much accurate the GPS. So this demonstrates then when a system works well for years, not today, for years, with performance that are certified, then you can, let's say, go beyond the technical autonomy and think about sovereignty. So this is the most important part. Then we can also say that a continent should be the capability to develop their own satellite. This is for sure. To own the assets, the critical infrastructure, but I would also add to own the algorithm, the software. No, we talk about AI, but in order to be, let's say, really autonomous, a continent should be not only, let's say, knowing the technology, but owning, in this case, the algorithm. Don't forget that in Europe there is a precise act on AI with the precise directions indicated by Europe, and the sovereignty and the autonomy of Europe should also pass from the way in which all the operational actors satisfy the rules in the act of AI, that are rules not to give limitation, but to give strategy and direction. So all these elements and many others make the two things strongly connected. The technical part is not, let's say, isolated or an actor which is in some way separated, but which are the strategy for the reasons that we have discussed also with the colleagues so far.
Thank you. I will stay a little bit more on the technology part, and today we see in the telecommunications area and satellite communications a large transformation with technologies like the optical communications, quantum communications coming, and how is this part important for the next generation of the sovereignty element that the European connectivity with secure communications, from your perspective?
Well, I guess it was one of the panels yesterday that they were discussing about the limitations of spectrum and the scarcity of spectrum and the difficulties that this is causing for the satellite operators. It's also true that the needs, communication needs, are growing exponentially, and that leads to a need for more and more spectrum. And to address that, you essentially forced to go to higher and higher frequencies. And you even have to go to light. But starting from radio frequencies that are, let's say, more difficult to manage, like Ka band, QV band, it becomes very important if you're talking about ground to space, because in free space everything is easy. But if you need to communicate with the Earth, and at some point it's inevitable, you need an access point that has favorable weather because of the susceptibility of terrain and other atmospheric phenomena. You have to make sure that you operate in a situation where you can sustain good weather conditions for most of the time. And luckily for us in Cyprus, this is an easy phenomenon, and most of the time it's sunny, and that's good. But even that, it's not always sufficient. In that case, diversity solutions become important. So for SIDA, this is something that we have invested a long time ago, and we operate in diverse mode for 15 years now. And that automatically brings a lot of advantages to the satellite operators and makes our customers happy, because if you lose a gateway, everybody's cut off. It's not just one remote. Now, coming to light, the situation becomes even more challenging. Even clouds can make your life difficult. We're happy to cooperate with the university, Cyprus University of Technology, and be part of the Euro QCI project, where we will be installing the first telescope in a few months and start doing trials and tests with light, actually. In the meantime, we have already installed our first telescope for another customer, and we're happy to get into that arena. There are always new challenges with every technology. The benefits are easy to see for everybody, but there is no such thing as a free lunch. There are always challenges, things you have to address and be ready for the future. Now, with light communications, I guess it's clear to all that laser beams are very, very well focused, so you keep the communication by nature a lot more private, or it's much easier to achieve that. And on top of that, if you add the quantum element, basically, to put it in very simple terms, if you didn't get your photon, somebody else did, so you make sure that you take the steps to repeat the communication later on, or take the steps to protect yourself from that onset. But on that front, I guess there are many things to be done. Some things are on the experimental stage, but these are the things we're looking forward in the future, and the opportunity to be a part of a larger ecosystem that capitalizes on those.
Before I let you, I want you to tell me a little bit, because we have here the two sides of the geography involved. And with all the geopolitical instability, let's say also that we have in the area, the EU infrastructures, they also improve our strategic economy, and secure communication has become vital, navigation, and you both mentioned that. And also to the emergency response. Yesterday we had the opportunity to see this very nice, elaborate exercise that they did. So from your perspective in particularly, what is the advantage of Cyprus geographically from this side of the European Union? And then I will turn to you from the other side of the European Union for that.
Being in a difficult area offers opportunities as well. So I will try to approach this a bit with some examples to make it easier for everybody to understand. At times of difficulty, we need to be alert. We need to make sure that all our systems are functioning and we have the ammunition to address the situation. Let me start with a very simple example. Let's say tomorrow we drive to the airport and we have navigation on our mobile or the car, and we're on the highway. Everything progresses normally, but at some instance, you notice that the application shows you on the opposite side of the highway. That happens every now and then. If we are driving to the airport, it's a nuisance. What's the worst thing that can happen? You may just lose an exit or be 5-10 minutes late or whatever. Imagine the situation where you are a pilot and you're trying to land a plane on a provincial airfield with no facilities, and your instruments show you that you're an error of 10 meters on your height. You crashed and you killed everybody. So in such a scenario, you need a system to provide the necessary correction to make sure you cope in these difficult situations. One such system is EGNOS. And it's a pan-European system with a lot of receiving stations over Europe that are hosted on given locations and record the error of Galileo and other navigation systems. So we're happy to host one station in Cyprus. We're happy to be constructing a second and make sure that this capability is extended in the Eastern Mediterranean and offers coverage in this difficult region. So by having this capability in Cyprus, we are able to complete the network all over Europe and give the necessary assistance to these people who have such needs. Another example is, for instance, the MEOLOT system. What is this about? Let's say there is a sailor on a tanker and he slips and falls in the water. it could take hours before anybody notices that the crewman is missing. If you are in a situation where this person has a specific device that when it gets wet, it automatically sends a beacon to the satellite, a MEOLUT satellite. That MEOLUT satellite sends it to a MEOLUT receiving station like the one we have in Cyprus and some other locations in Europe. Automatically the system is alerted, it goes to a search and rescue center, and the helicopter will go and look for this person in minutes. So that person actually survives.
Yes, we saw yesterday in the video, yes.
Exactly. So these systems help in a material ways to address the situation. But I'm also coming to what Johan has mentioned before. For instance, if you take Earth observation, the terminal we have installed this year at our premises, it's very, very useful for all Europe because it automatically gives a very important reception cone where you can receive signals directly from the satellite and have warnings all over Europe in a region that extends from the Eastern Mediterranean, the Black Sea, the Caspian, the Persian Gulf, and the Red Sea. That's a very important capability that is crucial for all the Union from this region. And the examples in this front are actually endless, but it just gives you an idea of what position can actually materially address real problems, not just for you, but for everybody in the Union.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll come to you now, to the other side of the European Union part, to look ahead when we are looking, as Europe looks to return back into having its own space capabilities. How could the Atlantic geography of Portugal and the Azores become a significant and important part in recovery operations, in operational resilience, and access to space?
Okay. On one side, we have access to space, and of course, that Europe needs autonomy and resilience in terms of access to space. Also focused on the new space paradigm that I talked before. But, of course, we need to look also to the return from space sector. There are several companies in Europe that are planning to make this an economic activity. We have already one launch center licensed for the Santa Maria Island in the Azores. The first 3 contracts were already signed for the first operations by the end of this year. And also we have one return from space operation contract signed with this same operator of this launch center that is going to be, like I said before, a flexible infrastructure that will support not only the access, but also the return from space. When we talk about, for example, reusability, in-orbit fabrication, rapid payload recovery, we are talking about return from space. And here, the readiness of these infrastructures and the rapid response is as important as launching them to space. And here is where the Azores and Portugal, of course, play a very important role as this Atlantic projection of Europe's space sector. Of course, this doesn't mean that Portugal needs to create the entire chain of value on this specific topic, but can be an important part of this process. For example, I'm very focused on this approach in the new space sector in Europe, but also in the, let's say, the institutional sector of space. For example, the Space Rider, it's an European project of a reusable vehicle for space missions, scientific missions in orbit. And the maiden flight is planned for 2028. And the return of this maiden flight will be the island of Santa Maria in the Azores. We are now starting to build the infrastructures that are needed. But once again, flexible, multi-purpose, at least for this maiden flight. Also the space center that is going to be built in Santa Maria, it's going to be a flexible infrastructure to give all the support, not only to these return from space operations, but also to the launching center, to integration. There are going to be the decontamination rooms and the clean rooms for all the support. So once again, geography sometimes plays a very more important role than the dimension of the countries in terms of economic and these things.
So we have been hearing a lot from all of you on how basically the EU member states and how the EU companies and actors are actually very much engaging into ensuring the sovereignty of the Union when it comes to global navigation, to Earth observation, to satellites, secure communication, and also access to space. And with let's say, if you have, and this will be my last question to all of you, have a particular message that each one of you want to pass to the decision and policy makers that are listening to us, what would it be? And I will start with you.
Okay, I will answer, but I want to elaborate more. Based on the experience that we did in Cyprus, and I will answer with final remarks what you mentioned. We got a project 38 million euros from European Commission, 15 million from European Commission, and 15 million from the government. There was on a table to decide how to invest the 15 million from the government as either for personnel or to invest for national infrastructure. We got an advisory board with experts from different European partners like DLR, strategic partners, NOAA, and Tropos. As a decision immediately, because I want to agree about the geography, geography is an important role. Why in Cyprus, how this investment of infrastructure is interrelated with European infrastructures, and what is the benefit behind this investment. And we took the decision to invest in 4 critical infrastructure. The ground receiving station real-time data, as Sotiris is mentioned, Cyprus is located in 3 continents and is the southeastern part of Europe that opened the windows to the Middle East, North Africa, and the Eastern Mediterranean region. Geography is an important role. We wanted to interrelate it with the antenna with business and also with big data analytics. We invest also on ground or base atmospheric station. Why? We wanted to be member of the national infrastructure, for example, European infrastructure like Actris for aerosol, climate changes, and air pollution. We invest the money, and we invest also on Cyclops with 22 reflectors.
So basically, yes, you want to align the infrastructure, the location, and what programs are available. I will have to, and because we have exactly 3 minutes left, and everyone has to say one sentence.
Yes, invest on infrastructure, collaborate, and connect the national infrastructure with European infrastructure.
Excellent. One sentence from you, decision to policymakers. What would you say?
No, it's a lovely situation where I can address my thoughts to the decision makers. I would say the following one. So how many times did we feel frustrated, no, in comparing the result of us in Europe with other actors abroad, no? They are faster, they are more... the message is this: please help us to never reduce our ambition, and please never reduce the investment and importance, because we can do it even better than the others. This is my message.
Excellent. Your message?
Well, what I'd like to say is that we have to recognize that space is a global endeavor. It's important for Europe to bring all the players together to collaborate and make sure that what we do now is for the long run, and also ensure that the business relationship grows within Europe in a healthy manner. Make sure the field is equal and plain for everybody and gives the opportunity for everybody to compete equally, because that's the best way to build trust within the union and ensure that things are going to progress smoothly in the long run.
Thank you. Yours?
I'm the last one.
Yes.
Okay. So, of course, Europe needs to get its own autonomy and resilience in all these aspects that we discussed here. But I think, and this is my message, maybe we should not run after the others when it comes to this matter. And we are behind, and we have to reach them, following the same steps. But maybe we should think about investing in what can make us different from the others, and I mean the other space players like the United States and China, for example. Maybe we should think about being different from them in things that maybe they are not looking at this moment so deeply. This is my message.
Thank you. Thank you all very much for this excellent discussion that we had today about the importance of EU infrastructures and member states' infrastructures and how they can build into our sovereignty. So a round of applause to our participants. Thank you all very much.
Well, now, good afternoon, everybody. We've heard a lot, including in that panel discussion, about GovSatcom and the historic launch or put into operation back in January, and of course the fact that Cyprus was the very first country to activate it. Two historic moments, and I think it's about time we see it in action live from this room. But first, for those of you not necessarily as familiar with GovSatcom, I'd like to invite Georgios Sinefakis and Marilena Ampelikioti to come up and launch us into this demonstration. Please join me in welcoming them.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Disasters do happen, unfortunately. Crises do happen, unfortunately. Either natural or man-made disasters. So either they come from internal sources, or from the south, the west, the north, or east of Europe. In response to these increasing threats in the current landscape, the European Union, the European Commission, with support of EUSPA, has put in place a support umbrella covering EU. There is a new beast in the EU space program. It's GovSatcom. And we are keen, very keen, that the first one who woke up this beast, who was born this January, was Cyprus. So I suggest an applause for Cyprus for waking up at the beach of GovSatcom. What is GovSatcom? GovSatcom is the implementation of one for all and all for one. All pooling, all sharing. SATCOM resources for member states, for crisis, for their needs, to ensure that no one is alone. This is GovSatcom. Let's continue. I will tell you how it works, and then we'll move on to the demonstration. This is how it works. GovSatcom is in the center. You see the GovSatcom hub, the heart of the system, the pooling and sharing platform. Today, operating in Madrid, Spain, for the initial services, but final operational capability will come from Germany and Greece, the two hosting sites of the final systems. GovSatcom, as a secure system, has also security monitoring. Security monitoring comes from the two centers, the two GSMCs of EUSPA, operated by EUSPA, from France and Spain. On top, you see who are feeding the beast, the resource providers. Today, they are France, Greece, Italy, Luxembourg, and Spain. These are the member states who are pooling their resources for all member states to use in case of need. How the member states use this? Through the competent GovSatcom authorities. All member states need to have one to access the system. Today, we have connected more than 20 CGAs to our system within 5 to 6 months of operation, of initial services. And we are very happy. We want to go to 27 member states, to include EU institutions, and also other states, non-EU member states, who are requesting and they are planning to have agreements with the EU to connect with GovSatcom. I will not go into details. I think you understood the message. So GovSatcom is support from all EU member states to all EU member states. In this respect, I give the floor to the Greek Ministry of Digital Governance, which is both CGA and the resource provider of Greece, to give you introduction and explanation for the demonstration you are going to witness in a while. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and good morning to all. Good evening to all. My name is Marilena Bellichiotti, and I work in the Ministry of Digital Governance. And part of my job is to set up the EU GovSatcom services. So, if you could, yeah. So, before starting with the demo, I would like to share a few words about the Greek participation to the program. So, as you know, for Greece, access to governmental satellite capacities has always been a necessity, a strategic necessity, and this is due because of geography. The extensive maritime areas, the islands and complex terrain make access to governmental capacities a necessity. And how we achieved that? So we have established a long-standing cooperation with ELASAT, the European satellite provider with ELASAT 2, 3, and 4 satellites. And this cooperation dates back in 2001. And ELASAT had always supported us during crisis and during the urgent situation when we wanted actually to have access to satellite capacity. And so we decided in 2017 to further formalize this cooperation with a national legislation. So in brief, in this legislation, what we have done is that on one part, the Ministry of Digital Governance will have access to governmental satellite capacity and also to the ground segment network, being able to provide end-to-end services. And on the other part, ELASAT has been granted with exclusive rights of spectrum to operate the satellites at our national orbital position in 39 East. So, building on this cooperation, we were very much happy to see the European GovSatcom initiative. And as already mentioned by Yorgos, Greece is hosting one of the 2 GovSatcom hubs in Athens in a secure military base with 24/7 surveillance, which is also hosting NATO communication elements. And this hub also we host, it's very important because also will be the hub accommodating the IRIS Square satellite capacities. On top of that, Greece is one of the 5 member states which act as a resource provider. And we have already been active and contributing to the EU GovSatcom initial services satellite capacities. And I'm happy to share that other member states acting as CGA have already requested from us capacities, and we have successfully delivered their requests. So the platform is actually, member states are engaging and using the platform to procure satellite capacities, and we as a resource provider, we are serving them and respond to their requests. And on top of that, we recently, with national legislation being among the 20 countries, as Yorgos said, to establish the competent GovSatcom authority, and we have submitted a request through the GovSatcom Hub platform to secure the necessary satellite capacity for the demo that will be presented to you in short time. And as a final remark, I would like also to say that the platform is up and running since January 2026, and we are still in the initialization phase, and we have faced some difficulties with the software, trying to address some bugs, and also as a competent GovSatcom authority, we see that member states need to have also the technical capacity to be able to place the orders in the platform. But I need to say that USPA and the GovSatcom Hub operator, GMV, are very supportive on this process, and they are organized frequent trainings, and let's work all together to strengthen European security, resilience, and satellite autonomous capacities. And with that, I would like now to invite Elasat, our partner, on the stage to present the demo. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. I had to wear my operational suit since we are going in a demo. Okay, so Mr. Sinefakis provided already a high-level block diagram of the GovSatcom beast. So, as you called it, George. So right now, what Marilena described, let's see the scenario for today's demo. The scenario says that a Greek team of first responders has arrived in Cyprus to support a wildfire. So the end user, which is the Ministry of Climate Crisis and Civil Protection, requested through the Greek CGA capacity in order to support this mission. The request went through the GovSatcom Hub. The GovSatcom Hub did the matchmaking. They decided that with the equipment that the end user has, Elasat is the right choice in order to support this mission. And the resource provider, which is the Ministry of Digital Governance, and Elasat acting as a subcontractor, they allocated the capacity on Elasat 3 satellite. The ERV team, ERV emergency response vehicle that arrived in Cyprus, let's see what is equipped with. So it's a vehicle that has a SATCOM on the move terminal, which works on KU band frequency on Elasat 3 satellite. For strengthening the situational awareness on the field, the vehicle has a thermal camera, which the video feed is going to be transmitted through satellite and then to the coordination centers in Greece, here at our conference, and everywhere else globally, because it's a network stream. A drone is going to be deployed for better situational awareness in the field, and the team also has push-to-talk mobile devices. I have also one here with me, which I'm going to connect in order to talk to the teams. So I would like to go straightly to the demo, and first of all, welcome from the National Operations Center of Greece. Just a welcoming, the Colonel, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone, from National Crisis Management Coordination Center in Athens, Greece. I am Colonel Panagiotis Papalis, coordinator of the National Crisis Management Coordination Center. We are ready to start the demo, highlighting the importance of resilience communication during crisis management. Thank you very much. The floor goes back to the exercise coordinator.
Thank you very much, Colonel. So, right now, as I told you, the ERV team has a push-to-talk device that is communicating through satellite network. So I'm going to press the button and ask their position. ERV team, please confirm your position, over.
ERV team to National Operations Center. We have arrived at the fire location and are awaiting instructions. Over.
You can see a thermal camera just on the left, and a drone has already been deployed in order to support the mission. So remember, this is a geostationary satellite. What you see is live. So it's impressive what can be achieved with the advancements made both on the technical equipment from a flat panel antenna, as well as the compression algorithms that can support this mission nowadays. Okay, so we see the fire. The thermal camera, I see that has identified the fire. ERV team, we can see the fire. Please confirm, over. Okay, now we see also first responders arriving at the field. First responders from Cyprus. So what we see now, is very important, and this is the outcome of a national exercise that we as ELASAT participated 2 years ago. What we noticed, our primary objective during this mission was to recover communications in the field. When we were together with the first responders, we noticed that all the field operators had with them DJI drones, small drones that were seeing the picture, but they didn't have the capability to transmit this nice picture and strengthen situational awareness on the coordination teams. So we said, we had the capability, we had our vehicle back then, so we could connect any device at our equipment and stream it over through the satellite. The big challenge for us was the vehicle, believe it or not. We were in Crete, your birthplace, George, and although we had the best equipment, you can't believe everything, we could not approach the actual operational field. So we said we have to use this car, what you saw, which is a very nice car, off-road vehicle that can go anywhere. And then, personally, I believe that Europe should focus on the terminal side. The big challenge is the terminal at the end. We need fast deployable terminals for these people that must be simple. They don't need to have any expertise on SATCOM. Right now, what they do is they just plug an HDMI cable and you see the transmission. We don't expect from those people, under the conditions that they operate, to be able to support a SATCOM terminal. We want to be plug and play. So this is our vehicle. Now we see that the first responders, they have finished probably. ERV team, please confirm your status over.
Over.
Even if we cannot hear them, I can play back the message in case I couldn't hear it. Okay, thank you very much for your support, gentlemen. Mission is over. Thank you, everybody. Please return back home safely. Over. Thank you very much. I believe it's obvious what we see. It can be done. It's a geosatellite and it can deliver what we need. Please, keep this. We need this capacity. We don't need more. It's enough for critical missions. The beast to work effectively, we need the cooperation of everybody. So thank the Ministry of Digital Governance. Thank EUSPA, personally from Hellas aside.
And I would like also to thank the Cypriot authorities and presidency for hosting us and for support for the deployment of this demo. Thank you very much.
Hello again, me again. That was, I think we can all agree, very, very cool. Can you join me in another round of applause for everyone involved, from the first responders to everybody who came up with this system? That is a moment of European pride we can all be very, very happy about. Now, I'd like to invite Frédéric up to the stage for our final panel. Just a piece of information at the same time, in the Agora we have the Cassini pitches, so if you want to do a bit of both, you're more than welcome to do so. So we'll just very shortly be starting with our next panel. Thank you so much.
Dear colleagues, this is the last panel of the day, I think, and I'm very pleased to talk to you about quantum today. Very important field that the European Commission is working on. And before we start, I'd like to introduce my colleagues here. So, welcome on stage, dear colleagues. We have Dr. Kali with us. Dr. Kali is a professor of photonics and director of FOSS Lab at the Cyprus University of Technology. He was a former department chairman, member of the University Board of Governance, and a three-term member of the Board of Directors of the Cyprus Organization for Standardization. He has led the first Cyprus terrestrial quantum key distribution deployment as coordinator of the CYQCY project, and is now leading the Cyprus activities for transnational QKD satellite-related deployment. Welcome on stage.
Thank you.
Joining us on the panel is Commander Mikhail Potitos, Technology Strategy Head at the Hellenic Center for Defense Innovation. Commander Potitos combines operational naval command experience with deep expertise in advanced sensors, uncrewed systems, and C5 I-STAR technologies. He has led national and EU defense projects, overseen missile system assurance at NATO's Sea Sparrow project office in Washington, and continues to drive innovation across uncrewed vehicles and counter-uncrewed vehicles capacities. We are pleased to have him with us today.
Thank you very much.
And last but not least, we have with us Mr. Alan Kuresevich, Managing Director of SES TechCom, SES Innovation and Advanced Solutions arm. He's currently leading the development of commercial projects and technology initiatives for governments, institutions, and strategic partners, including activities with the European Commission, our colleagues from the European Space Agency, and various governments around the world. His work has included developing and introducing commercial digital satellite TV system, advanced satellite communication and connectivity solutions. And today, his focus includes quantum secure communications, next-gen satellite connectivity, and secure, sovereign, and resilient space-enabled services. Welcome, Alan.
Thank you, Frederick. Thanks for having us here.
And I'm Frédéric Dombs. I work for DG DEFI at the European Commission. And my current job consists in developing quantum solutions for our EU space programs. I'd like to say, first of all, that quantum is a key area for the European Commission, and it's been identified in a number of our policies, strategies, and I will quote a few here. Hope it's not going to be too boring, but I need to do it. The competitiveness compass, the economic security strategy, the white paper for European defense, the quantum strategy, which we published in July 25, and of course, the Union Secure Connectivity Program on quantum communication also relates to the use of quantum in IRIS². So all of this to say that the European Commission has provided substantial efforts in developing quantum technologies, and this also applies to our EU space programs. And there's always a bit of mystery around the world, quantum, and usually there seems to be a bit of a misunderstanding around what quantum technologies are about. So for what concerns satellite communications, Dr. Kelly, could you give us, in very simple terms, what quantum communication is about?
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of liberty here. I'm going to answer the question first and then explain my answer. So basically, what you get with a quantum communications link is you get unconditional security from the satellite to the optical ground station. Okay? And we'll need to discuss this a little bit later on because there are some details with regard to that aspect. But you also get a sensor network. So I need to explain why you get these things. So if we consider what it means to have QKD, quantum key distribution, this is a way of distributing a secure encrypted key. So let's first consider if we have sort of classical, conventional optical communications. In that circumstance, you have lasers which produce milliwatts of power and typically use a terrestrial network to launch light from one end to another end. And of course, encryption takes place because we use complex computer algorithms which are pseudo-random. So this is conditionally secure. Why so? Because someone could harvest and decrypt that data at a later stage. And so you don't then have absolute security. If, on the other hand, you start reducing the power significantly, so you start with femtowatts of power, that's 10 to the minus 15 watts of power, then you're in the realm of launching single photons. And now you have access to the correlations that are related to quantum physics. So by doing so, you can use polarization of the light. So this is one aspect you can use to create a quantum state, and each quantum state can be considered a qubit. Now, of course, because we're talking about correlations, if someone tries to interact with this key, then they actually disrupt the key. And this increases the bit error rate in the system. And when it exceeds some nominal value, 11%, we know that someone is trying to hack the system. And so you throw away that key and you use a new key. So that's where the sort of sensing aspect is coming in this network. So now if we take this horizontal terrestrial network and we rotate it vertically, then we still have the same benefits for a space-based system. So we're talking now about having a trusted node in space which is communicating with an optical ground station on the Earth. And you still get the same benefits of having an incredibly, unconditionally secure network link, which still gives you this ability to understand whether or not someone is tampering with your network. And this, of course, leads to the potential for global secure communications. So this is really important stuff.
Thank you for this very detailed answer. I'll move now to my second question. Colleagues, what are your objectives and ambitions and expectations in terms of quantum technologies for satellite communications?
So we're very happy we have Dr. Kali. He said everything in a way, he's a professor in a way that everyone can understand, and thank you for that. So maybe I should be more general. Of course, yes, QKD is very important because let me add something that it has the underlying laws of physics and not the mathematics, the algorithmic underlying layer. So yes, the cryptography for the moment lies in the assumption that it's difficult to break it. Okay, while the QKD makes it impossible because not impossible to break it, but impossible not to understand if something happens. Okay, so in that sense, we fully agree with what Dr. Kali described. And, but in defense, we also see other aspects of quantum, like quantum sensors, of course, PNT, position, navigation, and timing, which is very crucial also in these contested and congested environments. Of course, quantum communications. So I'll be more general here, and we can elaborate more in the next questions.
Thank you. And we are very lucky today because we have with us one of the leaders in the development of satellite quantum communication. So Alan from SES. So Alan, can you talk to us about Eagle One, which is the name of the first European quantum satellite communication? Can you give us the status and explain to us how the first quantum communication satellite will meet the objectives described by our colleagues?
Thank you, Frederick. Yes, we look actually from the quantum key distribution, the quantum sensing or communication, a little bit more from the commercial side, let's put it that way, and looking actually to make this reality and industrialize in the commercial sense. So our first step towards that objective is Eagle One. Eagle One is actually end-to-end demonstration of the quantum key distribution, which includes not only technology on the satellite part of generating keys on the satellite, but also includes the complete end-to-end value chain and the service distribution of the keys up to the end user. So basically, we are looking already a little bit step ahead beyond the technology, which is by itself pretty much challenging and let's say early development technology. But we also want to make sure that when technology is ready, the complete way to distribute that key and ingest it into the current networks is available and very well, let's say, compatible with the quantum communication and QKD principles. So we look at the Eagle One as a kind of bridge between the research and technology towards the industrialization. Basically, being able to prove that technology works, basically that we are solving one of the key problems of QKD, which is the long-distance communication, because due to the very low power of the communication required or used to transport the information using photons, you can actually not do it more than 100 kilometers or 120 kilometers terrestrially. So if you really want to connect two distant users, you need to have some different means, and satellite seems to be probably the most efficient and most safer means to do so on the long distance QKD. Now, technology being the focus, also like operationability and making sure that the processes are there once the key is available to actually being used. The beauty of quantum key is actually you don't change your crypto systems today. The only thing you do is how you get the key. Everything else remains the same. Your routers, your system to encrypt, they still remain the same. Just the key comes from different sources. It doesn't come from mathematical algorithm. It comes from the physics of the let's say, system that generates that key. And of course, for us, Eagle One is also the bridge towards the industrialization. We would like also, there are lots of technical challenges, but it's also not only technical, also commercial. Today, we need to use for Eagle One a relatively big optical ground station to receive the keys, which commercially I think needs to be addressed because that's not commercially viable on the long term and for the bigger, let's say, user group. So we look also at the Eagle One as a learning ground in which we want to get these learnings of Eagle One together with our users and then go into the next step of commercial constellation, which obviously quantum key distribution will be at a different scale in terms of the capabilities to deliver the key, but also different cost. There was a question about where we are with Eagle One. I think that's probably...
I was going to ask it because there are lots of expectations. This is going to be a first, and people across Europe are expecting to be able to test their hardware and their optical ground stations with Eagle One.
Yes.
So can you tell us a bit more about that?
So we are currently in the advanced stages of building the satellite. Basically, the satellite itself has been already more or less pretty much composed by all the parts. Payload, which means basically quantum key payload, the generation payload is a little bit delayed. So basically, there are some delays there which are of the technology natures of the project itself. So we are looking at the launch of Eagle One, which is going to be end of 2027, begin 2028. So there we can actually, in the meantime, we're working very close with the users. Basically, we have two big groups, like one are all the beneficiaries of the Connected Europe facility call to connect to the EuroQCI to connect to the Eagle One. But also there is a number of commercial companies we work with in order to demonstrate the QKD in the commercial environment.
Thanks for the answer. I'm happy to say that the European Commission is also supporting the launch of Eagle One with the IOD/IOV program through Horizon Europe. So we are funding part of the activities there, and we are very proud of that. Maybe, Alan, can you tell us a bit more about the next steps after Eagle One, maybe? Do you have something in the pipeline already?
Yeah, next steps after Eagle One. Actually, as I said, like Eagle One should be the bridge between the technology development and the industrialization. So next step for us is obviously going towards industrialization, going towards the smaller scalable constellation of the QKD satellites, which we call the Eagle Next. Which are going to be obviously with different objectives. Eagle One was really to prove the technology works, that actually we can do it, that we can test the end-to-end, let's say, operational systems and everything else. Eagle Next is actually like making sure that we get like multifold increase in the key rate, we get multifold decrease in the cost on the ground of the equipment, and we engage basically commercial users and obviously governments and institutions that require such a strong encryption facility. Yeah.
Thank you, Alan. And now, dear colleagues, I'm going to ask the hard question. And the hard question is the following. There are conflicting views on the usage of quantum key distribution, because I talk to my colleagues who are interfacing with NSAs, and basically they don't want to hear about QKD. They are telling us we are, of course, not there yet, but then the security proof is not there yet either. So please, colleagues, explain to us what are your views on this. Is there a future for what we are doing now?
Okay, that's a very hot question, actually, a very challenging question as well, because it's all about whether or not you really want to keep secrets and at what level you want to keep a secret. So if you consider in defense applications, and you look at Europe now, and Europe is inching towards a difficult situation with its neighbors, and one neighbor in particular. So we have to consider what that really means for us as a union of countries. Okay, so I think the idea that you want to have unconditional security is becoming more and more important, but there's a cost. And the cost is the complexity in deployment of the systems, which is quite challenging. The high cost, again, this is challenging, but the benefits are undisputable. So the reason why there's this conflicting opinion is that people say, well, there's so much effort into deploying a QKD system that we could use post-quantum cryptography, and this is a direction that certainly the US is looking towards, whereby you have very robust algorithms, which are very, very hard to break, so it's a different level of mathematics. It's really challenging to break them. But of course, that security is conditional. So I would say that the idea that we live in a world where QKD replaces everything is not quite correct. There's definitely a role for QKD, but there's also a role for other forms of cryptography and secure communications. And I think we have to approach it somewhat like security is the sort of layered security you get in the aviation industry, where you have multiple layers of security based on a need-to-know basis, essentially. Okay, so definitely you can have hybrid security, where you can have QKD, you can have PQC, and you can have more conventional forms of security. The idea that you get rid of QKD completely, though, is not a good one, because if we look further east, you can see that China has successfully deployed incredibly challenging QKD projects. So I think Europe really has to invest in this technology. You will never convince everyone, okay, because of the time and effort and cost required. However, I think we live in a very complicated world. Geopolitics is changing dramatically. Europe needs to have its own sovereign security ecosystem, and QKD should play a part in that.
Yeah. So maybe just I think it's a question of time and the safety you would like to achieve. I mean, talking about the time, it's clear that there are more mature technologies today, like PQC, that actually provide certain solutions for the, let's say, quantum resilient, let's say, challenge. The QKD is not yet there in terms of technology. Like it requires some development, it requires standardization, certification. So that's why there's obviously much bigger push today for the PQC than QKD. I think the ultimate, let's say, solution is probably a hybrid solution where you basically need to judge how much you value your data, and then obviously how much you are willing to invest in your crypto system. If your data is very valuable, it's basically about the safety, security of the people, sovereignty, and so on, I guess in my mind the answer is pretty obvious. And that, I think that combination of PQC and QKD is something that, you start today with PQC and you gradually adopt QKD as technology matures and as your data needs are becoming, let's say, encryption needs becoming more stringent and more obvious. And today, yes, QKD is complex, it's expensive, but the internet was complex and expensive 20 years ago. We were paying thousands for kilobits of data. I mean, we need to go through that period and then get to the point where actually with the objective what we want to achieve. And there is a transition period today, which is basically hybrid mode, in which PQC and QKD will ultimately coexist and address the particular use cases for each particular user.
So once again, they cover most of the. So let me give you some details, if I can help for the audience. Yes, definitely hybrid is the solution. I would suggest also, and we need to understand that PQC lies in a different layer than QKD. So there's always the danger of harvest now, decrypt later. So QKD will help us there because of the keys and the fact that makes you sure that there is no eavesdropping or man in the middle in such cases. So I would also like to stress that QKD is helping us also to start working towards quantum networks and the quantum internet. So it's not close, it's not in the near future, but definitely this helps us draw some conclusions on that aspect as well. The last thing I would like to stress is that, of course, we need physical security for QKD. So that's a very important constraint we need to understand. That, of course, you can have a breach, but they need to access your actual physical, installation where you have the modems and we use single photon detectors, and of course we need to understand that a lot of steps have been done so far, but we need interoperability, which is difficult because of the different equipment that we need to make interoperable for the moment. This is something I wanted to add, and of course, it's not that simple. I fully agree with both of the other panelists.
So I'll use that for my next question then. In order to deploy QKD, and that seems to be a challenge. So what are your main challenges? Are they technical because you want to use trusted nodes, or are they legal, or are accreditation people making your life difficult? What are the main hurdles you are going to face?
Okay, so we've now have a couple of quantum-based research projects. And when we first started on these projects, we thought the EU was pushing too hard, to be honest. That was our first thought, but we've since changed our mind. You really need to push hard in order to get a QKD system to work. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, but once it's working, I think it's worth the effort. The problems are basically technical and operational. So the technical problems, especially for space-based projects, are the link budget. So this means we're trying to detect photons of light, right? So in space, we don't have to worry about weather systems. There's no absorption or scattering of light in space. But then you get into the Earth's atmosphere, and in the upper atmosphere, you're looking at turbulence, which is a problem. So you have to essentially deploy the same methods they use when you're looking at stars, so adaptive optics, to try and get rid of any effects of turbulence. And then you look at, issues of cloud coverage, dust. Dust is a huge problem. So you work at longer wavelengths where scattering from dust is less. But regardless, if you have a dust storm, you're talking about 100 dBs per kilometer loss. If you have a little bit of dust in the atmosphere, that's like 10 dBs per kilometer. So you're working against that. That's an advantage we have in Cyprus. Most of the time we have clear skies. So this is a huge advantage we have. Then you have the precision requirements. That satellite that you're trying to connect to is moving at 8 kilometers a second. And you've got to have this pen-like beam of light, which is directed onto a very small patch of the Earth's surface. And so your satellite needs to track, sorry, your OGS, your optical ground station, needs to track that satellite. And then you have, what, a few minutes per pass in order to recover a key or part of a key. And you have to then repeat this process. Okay, so that's real technological challenge here. And then you look at sort of operational / technical, because cost, I think, falls into both brackets, because cost certainly limits the technology that you can invest in. And then you have the key management system. So as you quite rightly said, if you're going to have a pan-European network, everyone is going to use different hardware, perhaps different architectures, and yet you have to share a key on a common platform. Okay, you send the key, you receive the key, that has to be distributed in any number of ways. So the key management system is a real challenge there as well. And then you have issues of certification, which means that, and that's what I was touching upon before, that maybe you have unconditional security once you leave Alice and before you get to Bob, but you still have to have that physical layer security to protect Alice and Bob from side channel attacks. Okay, so that means all the hardware also has to be certified accordingly. So yeah, these are quite a challenging thing. So what you're doing is you're not certifying the hardware, or you're not proving the hardware is working. You have to make the system work. That means software, hardware, the whole thing.
So let me bring something positive, because
yeah, it sounded too negative, right? But it's not. It's really good. It's you know, the effort is worth the outcome.
No, it's really challenging, and but the good thing is that because of the effort and the push from European Union, we have the EuroQCI project. I will talk about Greece. So we have the Hellas QCI project. So I've seen it working. So okay, it's not in space; it's the terrestrial part, but they've done a tremendous. A huge improvement, and they have a very big network. And of course, we have the 3 optical ground stations in Greece, and because of the weather, and we also have companies that can, you know, can detect whether the conditions are good for this kind of operations. So we have a lot of things already, and there are many steps to go through still, but we have done it to the limits. So 130 kilometers, tick. 650 kilometers of total network, tick. Yeah, using different equipment also. We have a very good collaboration between different organizations and MODs across Europe. So there are projects now for interoperability between different countries and systems. So I think that's a very positive step forward.
Yeah, just maybe to add a few. Technology definitely is the challenge, and I don't want to dwell on this. I mean, we are facing this on a daily level, but we will make it technology-wise. I think the part of the issue or the challenge comes also from the standardization and accreditation. I mean, in order to QKD, as any other system, to get adopted, you need to have ecosystem. An ecosystem depends on making sure that 2 parties, wherever they are in the world, can actually talk to each other. For that, you need standardization, and you need accreditation. Standardization is the first time to basically, for them to understand the language. I mean, engineering language or data language, for data to keys to be transmitted between two parties in the way that is safe, standardized, and accepted by the vendors of equipment. But you also have to have the accreditation layer saying, okay, the way how we are doing is actually recognized by our national security agencies. And I think On the standardization part, I think there is lots of things happening right now, both on the European level, with the ETSI, there are multiple work groups working on the interfaces, on the QKD, terrestrial space QKD, and so on. Also on the ITU level, on the International Telecom Union level, where the standardization work is happening. On the accreditation, I must say, if I would compare a year and a half or maybe 2 years today, year and a half, 2 years, it was very difficult to talk to the National Security Agency about QKD. I think today, they all understand, and they understand they cannot accredit it today because they don't know what it is. Let's be very blunt about that. But they're accepting the fact that they will engage into that, look into it, and actually work together with legislation, industry, European Commission to make sure that there is accreditation process that can lead to the successful adoption of QKD in the market. And I think we managed to kind of break a little bit that resistance in order to create the ecosystem. And I think looking from where we are today compared to where we were maybe a year or 2 years ago, I think the whole community made a great effort in doing that.
Thank you for this very precise answer. So I heard you talking about equipment and various bits and bobs being deployed on ground, in space. And the key question we are facing at EU level is the following. Are we able to deploy a sovereign technological solution? Are we able to procure every single bit from our system from within the European Union?
Okay, the answer to this question is watch this space, in a sense, because I think we can. I think that probably our biggest challenge is we have a conventional understanding of what TRL means, technology readiness level, and our experience has been that some work is required in this direction. Not just from an EU perspective, I would say in general, this is the case. The systems are not plug and play. So you can't just bring in an Alice in a Bob pair and just say, okay, I just include this in my network and that's it. You know, you have to do your homework, you do have to make background measurements, you have to understand what your network is before you undertake the deployment activity. Of course, and we see this in CWQCI, which is our pan-European network. And thankfully, I must say, I'm very happy we're working with Greece on this, with a coordinating CWQCI. And we're working with the Netherlands and with Bulgaria on this project. So it's a great project to be involved in. And each partner is using different hardware. We also have optical ground stations which are being sourced in different ways, and so have differences, sort of hardware differences, technological differences between them. And so to get all of this working is quite a challenge, and especially the aspect of the key management system. So it's one thing to say you can generate a key. However the key is generated, whether you have a trusted node, which is equal 1 or not, it doesn't really matter. The idea is you have this key, and somehow you have to get that key and distribute it throughout Europe, for example. And so the real trick here is, can you have a key management system that can be applied universally regardless of the hardware that you're using? So if Europe wants to have that sovereignty, which it needs, for QKD and other kind of security, then we need to certainly address that issue, I would say.
Yeah, I can talk definitely from the space perspective. Eagle One is designed as an EU sovereign system, so everything what is critical for the QKD on Eagle One comes from Europe. So in that perspective, I think, and thankfully to the, let's say, push from the European Commission and the funding there, this was one of the conditions. I think we are happy to say that in Eagle One we can demonstrate that Europe can do actually the sovereign QKD system from the space. And sovereignty is a key here. I mean, if you look at the investments that certain countries do across the world, where basically quantum computing, but also quantum security, becomes the strategic sovereign item of the national agendas. I mean, everybody from US, but also in Europe, US, China, but also in Europe, like France, Germany. There's lots of money on the national level, but also on the Commission level being put into the programs to make sure that there is a sovereignty, let's say, respected, and there is actually a technology solution that provides the result and an answer to the many sovereign questions we are facing today in the daily and political life.
So yes, what I would like to add here is that, as I told you before, I've seen it work. There are a lot of challenges. One of them, the key management system, but we're getting there step by step. And I'm very optimistic. And you know that also because I'm in Hellenic Center for Defense Innovation, and we fund the national part of EDF projects and EDA projects. There are some projects there as well. I believe it's around 60 million so far that the European Union has funded for such projects, not only in comms, but in quantum, in general for quantum. So we're here to support with additional projects that come from armed forces requirements. And armed forces also provide installations that will make sure we have the security, the physical security that we need. So I would say, yes, we can do that. We have all the infrastructure. We need to make sure that we have not only the capability to have interoperability and a sovereign key management system, but on top of that, we need to check the supply chain security, which is something we need to be very cautious. There are some steps done already in the European Union, but I think we're not there yet.
Okay, thank you. I see time's running out, so I'm going to fire my last question. We talked a lot about quantum key distribution, which is the basics of quantum communication. But what about other quantum technologies for SATCOM? I'm a big fan of Rydberg atoms for RF, for example, which is another quantum technology. So are you involved, or what are your views on these alternative technologies? Is there a future there?
Unfortunately, we're not involved at present, but it's an area that we would certainly like to be involved in directly. Definitely, there's a future in looking at new technologies. We're not changing the fundamentals, right? Quantum physics is quantum physics. So that's not going to change. But I think we definitely have to explore new technologies so that we can scale down what we see. Because currently we have, nice boxes and what have you, but it would be great if we really wanted to have, quantum technology in our life, we would have to scale it down in some way. Okay, so for sure. This idea of, people talk about the quantum internet quite a lot. And so there's this notion of using entanglement in order to realize a quantum internet. I don't see it as a technology that's going to replace the existing internet, but rather to complement it and to provide unique technologies that wouldn't otherwise be realized. So you could imagine that as quantum computers evolve, maybe it's possible to entangle different quantum computers from around the world in some way, so that you have this kind of supercomputer network which you could piggyback onto sort of the existing, well, perhaps not existing infrastructure, but conceptually the same kind of infrastructure. Obviously, that would then give you the kind of stability and unconditional security that we keep on talking about. You would get that as well. And you had mentioned actually sensing networks. So you could actually create huge sensing networks and measurement networks around the globe. So I think the idea of an internet in the conventional sense, where we're kind of doing social media, no, but definitely a new kind of
something useful.
internet. Yeah.
Yeah, so because I'm military, and I'm Navy, I would go for situational awareness, and quantum sensors is definitely an area we need to focus, and will give us, faster and way better detection. The distances will be greater, much greater than what we can achieve right now, and this is very crucial for situational awareness. Detection of all these systems. We'll be able to detect uncrewed systems much easier, while now we need several sensors in order to do so. So I would focus on that area. Of course, quantum computers will also give us the situational awareness, because they will solve all these problems that we need to solve, and give us way faster decision-making support.
Yeah, from our perspective, which let's say maybe less R&D, but more, let's say, looking at the commercial view on that. QKD is definitely segue to the quantum internet, because technology is very proximate to the what we do in QKD today. So I think that's definitely the area what we are looking at. However, there are other areas which make sense to the quantum technology to deploy from the satellite, like for instance quantum sensing, which is not something that needs to be invented actually. I mean, it has to be put on the satellite scale, but quantum sensing exists today in medical equipment. It's everyday use in the hospitals. So it's not something that requires, let's say, totally different shift in the let's say, thinking. But also quantum timing, or very ultra high precise geopositioning system, in which basically you use the quantum technology to get to the sub-millimeter precision on the Earth, which can be also used not only on the Earth, but also you can turn it the other way around towards the space and use it for the let's say, planetary travel, or maybe some things on the settlements on the different planets or moons. Yes.
Well, dear colleagues, time's up. I think we are 5 minutes too far, but in any case, I'd like to thank you very much for having joined the panel. And I hope we have clarified for the audience what is quantum and what quantum communications are about. And thanks in joining me in applauding our colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, friends, we made it. You have shown a proof of incredible staying power and stamina, so well done, all of you, for that. Thank you all so much. It has been an amazing 2 days here in Nicosia. We started by celebrating massive milestones, from the launch of new Galileo satellites to GovSatcom, and Cyprus, of course, proudly making history as the very first country to activate it. We looked back on day one, where we talked about the new space ecosystem, advancing Europe's autonomous access to space, and others. That was certainly a jam-packed day yesterday. Today a little bit lighter, but no less interesting, bringing it back down to earth, focusing on nurturing the skills of tomorrow, and of course closing with quantum communications. From the Galileo-powered road monitoring bus that some of you would have taken to come here, to the Cassini pictures that have just wrapped up next door, I think it's safe to say that European space innovation is thriving, resilient, and deeply impactful for European citizens, myself included. Before I close, a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, just after this, we're going to have a networking lunch next door, so please do enjoy our last few moments together. You heard me mention this Galileo-powered bus. For those looking for a lift to Nicosia town centre, that PaveScan bus is going to be coming back just outside the flags outside at 2:45, leaving at 3 o'clock to bring you back.